Beneath the endless stretch of the Pacific Ocean, far from the bustling cities of the modern world, lies a ghost city few have ever heard of. A city built not on land, but on water, its walls rising from shallow lagoons like blackened teeth of basalt stone. To the locals, it is a place of silence and dread. To historians, it is an unsolved riddle. And to the world, it may be one of the greatest forgotten wonders ever built by human hands. This is Nan Madol, often called the Venice of the Pacific. Yet it has more in common with Stonehenge or the pyramids than with the canals of Europe. An ancient city built entirely on artificial islets, connected by waterways instead of streets, carved out of volcanic stone that should have been impossible to move without cranes, pulleys, or steel. It is a place that should not exist. The ruins stretch across 92 man-made islands, each created by stacking massive columns of basalt rock in neat, interlocking patterns. Some of these stones weigh as much as 50 tons, and yet there are no quarries on the tiny island of Pohnpei from which they could have come. How, then, were they brought here? Who had the knowledge, the vision, and the power to lift such giants and set them into precise geometric order? No written record tells us. No tools have been found. The people of Pohnpei still whisper that it was the work of magic. But the mystery does not stop at construction. For unlike other ancient wonders, Nan Madol was built directly into the sea. The canals are not shallow ponds but tidal waterways, rising and falling with the ocean itself. To attempt such a feat without concrete or iron foundations defies explanation. And yet the city still stands, centuries after its people abandoned it. Why would anyone choose to build their capital in the water, in a place where survival would be most difficult? Legends say it was founded by two brothers, twin sorcerers who arrived from far away, carrying with them the knowledge of the gods. These sorcerers are said to have commanded stones to fly through the air, carried by unseen forces, to construct walls and temples that still stand.
Others say it was the home of a dynasty of rulers who chose to isolate themselves upon the water in order to control their subjects through fear and spectacle. But the people also tell a darker tale, that every ruler who made Nan Madol their home died mysteriously, one after another, as if cursed by the very city they claimed as their throne. So here is the first great question. Was Nan Madol a political capital meant to dominate a kingdom? Was it a spiritual hub meant to connect its people with gods and stars? Or was it something else entirely? A remnant of a lost world, like Atlantis or Lemuria, that slipped beneath the waves? To stand on the black stones of Nan Madol today is to feel that you are intruding on a secret never meant for modern eyes. The jungle has crept back across the ruins,
Wrapping basalt columns in vines and roots. The canals are choked with reeds. The cries of seabirds echo in the silence. It is not a city alive, but a memory that refuses to die, whispering to those who dare to visit that something extraordinary once thrived here.
But how extraordinary?
And why does its story vanish into silence, without explanation, without closure, without even a hint of where its people came from, or where they went? The deeper we go into Nan Madol, the more impossible the puzzle becomes. Because what if, just what if, this Venice of the Pacific was never meant to be a city at all? What if it was hiding something much larger, much older, buried beneath its black waters? And that, perhaps, is where the mystery truly begins. Beneath the surface of Nan Madol's haunting ruins lies a silence so heavy it feels alive. The basalt walls stand unmoving, as though guarding a secret that has outlived dynasties, storms, and the rise and fall of empires. Yet, every stone whispers the same riddle. How did this place come to be? To begin answering that, we must confront a problem that has baffled scientists and archaeologists for more than a century: the stones themselves. Each column of basalt is massive, shaped not by human hands but by volcanic fire long before the city was conceived. These stones fracture naturally into hexagonal pillars, but to transport them, align them, and stack them into towering walls is no natural process. Some of these basalt logs stretch over 6 meters in length and weigh more than a truck. And Nan Madol has not just one or two of these giants. It has hundreds of thousands. Where did they come from? The nearest quarry lies on the opposite side of the island, over 20 miles away. To drag stones that size through dense jungle, across mountains, and over rivers would have been backbreaking even with modern machines. And yet the builders of Nan Madol supposedly accomplished this with no wheels.
No pack animals, no pulleys, only manpower and will. But here's the riddle. The islanders had canoes, fragile vessels meant for fishing and coastal travel. How could they have floated stones heavier than whales across water without capsizing? Some researchers argue that logs could have been used to roll the stones. Others suggest rafts lashed together from bamboo. But those explanations quickly collapse under the sheer scale. Even if you could load a 50-ton basalt log onto a raft, how would you stop it from sinking instantly? How would you steer it through strong Pacific currents without modern navigation? It is here that legend and archaeology blur. The people of Pompeii tell stories of Olosopa and Olosipa, the twin sorcerers who are said to have flown the stones into place. These myths might sound fantastical, but they may also preserve echoes of something deeper. Perhaps lost technologies, knowledge of buoyancy, or methods of construction now forgotten. Could it be possible that Nan Madol's creation was guided by techniques beyond our current imagination?
Possible that Nan Madol's creation was guided by techniques beyond our current imagination? Or is it more likely that the builders had access to resources or skills we have yet to uncover? What unsettles researchers even more is that Nan Madol wasn't just a single structure. It was a sprawling complex. 92 islets, arranged with geometric precision, spread across nearly 200 acres. Some were residential quarters, some ceremonial centers, some tombs. The sheer organization suggests not just brute force, but advanced planning. An urban vision unlike anything else in Oceania. Who commanded this project? Who ordered their people to build a city on the water instead of the land around them? And here lies another enigma. Why build on water at all? The very location of Nan Madol seems counterintuitive. The islets are surrounded by tidal currents, making life difficult. Fresh water had to be carried in from inland. Farming was impossible on basalt and salt. Fish could be caught, yes, but a city cannot thrive on fish alone. So why place your seat of power in such a hostile, inconvenient setting? Some argue it was a political move, a way for the ruling elite, the Sautelur dynasty, to separate themselves from the common people. On the islets, they could monitor and control access, isolating themselves in a fortress of stone and water. But that explanation feels thin when measured against the cost. Others whisper that it was not politics at all, but something spiritual. Perhaps Nan Madol was not meant to be a city in the traditional sense, but a sacred center, a place aligned with forces far greater than human authority. That theory grows more intriguing when you look at its design. The canals of Nan Madol are not random waterways. Some align with lunar tides and celestial events, leading some to suggest that the site may have been a kind of giant calendar, a ceremonial observatory where sky and sea met. But if this is true, then the builders were not only skilled engineers, they were astronomers, philosophers,
visionaries far ahead of their time. So here we are, standing at the edge of two paths, one paved by human determination, ingenuity, and sheer willpower, and another that hints at something lost, a knowledge erased from history, preserved only in whispers of sorcery and forgotten gods. But the riddle of Nan Madol doesn't end with how it was built, or why it was built. Because the greatest question of all is this: why was it abandoned? For a city that took generations to build, one that served as the capital of an empire, its sudden silence is almost chilling. The people who once lived among these basalt walls vanished, leaving behind no detailed records, no explanation, not even ruins of the everyday tools and objects we might expect. Just stone, just silence, just mystery. And it is here, in that silence, that the legend of Nan Madol deepens into something far darker. The silence of Nan Madol is not
the silence of nature reclaiming stone. It feels heavier, older, as if the place itself is holding its breath. For centuries, the people of Pompeii have whispered that this city on the sea is cursed. Chiefs who ruled from its basalt walls, they say, did not live long. One by one, each leader who made Nan Madol his home met an early death, as though the city itself demanded a price for its secrets. This belief runs deep enough that even today many locals refuse to set foot in the ruins after dark. Fishermen avoid the waters around it at night, steering their boats far from the basalt walls that rise like black shadows against the moonlight. To them, Nan Madol is not just an ancient ruin. It is a place haunted by something unseen, a force that punished those who tried to claim it as their own. But how much of this is legend and how much might be history? The rulers most associated with Nan Madol were the Saudeleur dynasty, said to have descended from the sorcerer brothers who first founded the city. At its height, the dynasty ruled thousands of people across Pompeii, centralizing power in a way no one on the island had before. The Saudeleur imposed strict laws, collected tributes, and demanded loyalty. Yet, despite their dominance, their reign ended not with a slow decline, but with an abrupt collapse. Polarization described the Saudeleur as tyrants, cruel rulers who abused their subjects and overreached their authority. But some versions of the story add something more supernatural, that the dynasty fell because they had angered the gods themselves. In one tale, a hero named Isokelakel sailed to Pompeii from a distant land, leading a rebellion that toppled the Saudeleur. In another, the dynasty was undone by the curse of Nan Madol itself, which no mortal power could resist for long. Here lies a chilling thought. Could the curse be more than myth? Archaeologists note that Nan Madol's location would have made life incredibly difficult. Food had to be brought in, fresh water was scarce, and the ocean's tides constantly threatened the islets.
To rule from Nan Madol was to rule from a place of isolation and constant struggle. Perhaps this harsh reality, more than any supernatural force, slowly drained the strength of those who lived there. Yet the legends insist otherwise, that something in the stones, in the water, in the very design of the city, refused to let rulers thrive. And then, there is another, more unsettling possibility. That Nan Madol was abandoned not because of rebellion, not because of tyranny, but because its original purpose had been fulfilled or lost. Could it be that the city was never meant to be a permanent home at all? Could it have been a ceremonial site, a place used only in certain cycles of time when the stars or the tides aligned? If so, then its silence today is not abandonment, but completion. But completion of what? When explorers first stumbled upon Nan Madol, they saw only ruins, buried.
But when you trace its canals, measure its walls, and stand within its temples, a different possibility emerges. The city's design suggests more than politics, more than mere defense. Some researchers argue that its layout reflects cosmic order, that its canals and islets may have been aligned with constellations, lunar cycles, or even geomagnetic forces. If true, Nan Madol may have been built as a reflection of the heavens upon the earth, a sacred mirror between sky and sea. And if that is the case, then its abandonment becomes even stranger. Why would anyone desert a city that was designed to embody cosmic harmony? Unless something went wrong. The curse, the rebellion, the god's anger, the exhaustion of resources. All of these are possible explanations. Yet none fully account for the eerie finality of Nan Madol's silence. It sits there still, as though frozen in time, untouched by modern development, guarded by jungle and tide. Other ancient sites, Stonehenge, the pyramids, Machu Picchu, have been studied, restored, even turned into global attractions. Nan Madol, by contrast, remains hidden, half forgotten, unclaimed by the world, as though the mystery itself refuses to be solved. And that raises the question. Was Nan Madol meant to be forgotten? Or is it still guarding something beneath its basalt foundations? Something we were never meant to uncover. Beneath the basalt walls and tidal canals of Nan Madol, there are whispers of something still hidden. A secret entombed beneath stone and sea. What we see today may not even be the full city. Some researchers suggest that much of Nan Madol might extend below the waterline, submerged over centuries by rising seas. If true, then the ruins we marvel at now are only the fragments of a much larger world, one that could still be hiding chambers, tunnels, or structures yet undiscovered. The most tantalizing of these whispers concern burial vaults. Local legends say that Nan Madol was once home to a vast tomb, containing the remains of the Saudeleur rulers, and treasures
buried with them. Some accounts claim that the greatest tomb of all lies beneath a massive basalt structure known as Nan Madol, a fortress-like complex at the edge of the ruins. Its walls rise nearly 8 meters high, thicker than any other at the site, as though shielding something of immense importance. When archaeologists first explored Nan Madol, they did indeed find human remains within. But what if those burials are only the beginning? Some believe that the true burial chamber lies deeper still, sealed beneath layers of stone and water, untouched for centuries. If such a chamber exists, it could hold not only the bones of rulers, but clues to who the builders really were and why they built a city on the sea. But if the tomb remains hidden, perhaps it is because it was meant to remain sealed. For many, the curse of Nan Madol is tied to its sacred function as a burial site. To disturb it,
They say, is to invite disaster. Could it be that the city was abandoned not out of weakness, but out of reverence? A conscious decision to leave the dead undisturbed. Yet, there is another theory, far stranger and far more unsettling. Some believe that Nan Madol may not simply be an isolated wonder, but the last surviving fragment of a much larger civilization. This is where Nan Madol's legend bleeds into the myth of Lemuria, or Mu, the lost continent of the Pacific. For centuries, dreamers and mystics have spoken of a vanished land, a great civilization swallowed by the ocean thousands of years ago. According to this theory, Nan Madol is not just an island city. It is the surviving outpost of an empire that stretched across the Pacific, connecting distant peoples with shared knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and magic. The idea may sound fantastical, but consider this. Nan Madol's basalt architecture has striking similarities to other megalithic traditions around the world. The precision stacking of massive stones calls to mind the walls of Cusco and Sacsayhuaman in Peru. The ceremonial waterways echo the sacred lakes and canals of Angkor in Cambodia. Even the geometric alignment with celestial events mirrors what we see at Stonehenge and the pyramids. Could all of these similarities be coincidence? Or are they traces of a lost global knowledge, scattered like breadcrumbs across the world? The connection grows even stranger when you look at the ocean floor around Micronesia. Deep beneath the waves, sonar mapping has revealed unusual formations, terraces, ridges, and shapes that some claim could be remnants of sunken structures. Most scientists attribute these to natural geology. But, for those who believe in Lemuria, these are the broken foundations of a drowned civilization, with Nan Madol as its last surviving monument. If that is true, then Nan Madol is not just a local mystery, it is a doorway to a global puzzle. A reminder that our history may be far older and more complex than we imagine. But even if we put aside lost continents and curses, the questions remain. Why did its builders commit to such a monumental project?
why here in this remote corner of the Pacific, in a place so hostile to survival? Was it a display of power, a center of faith, or something we have not yet begun to understand? And perhaps the most chilling question of all, if the ruins we see are only the visible fragments of Nan Madol, then what still lies hidden in the depths below, waiting to be discovered? Imagine standing on the edge of Nan Madol at twilight. The jungle has gone quiet. The tide creeps into the canals, and the basalt walls glow faintly in the fading light. You look into the black water, and a question stirs in your mind. What lies beneath? Are there chambers sealed away for centuries, waiting for discovery? Or is the city guarding something far stranger, something it does not want revealed? Modern researchers
Asked the same questions. Expeditions have mapped the ruins, measured the walls, even sent divers into the surrounding waters. Yet every investigation ends the same way, with more mystery than answers. The stones reveal no carvings, no inscriptions, no traces of language. No tools have been unearthed that explain how such engineering was possible. And still those massive basalt columns sit perfectly aligned, as though defying time itself. If Nan Madol was merely a ceremonial center or a fortress, why does it feel so deliberately incomplete? Why do so many of its canals lead nowhere, as though meant to connect to something now vanished beneath the sea? Was the city built atop older ruins, its true foundation swallowed by time and tide? Archaeologists often try to place Nan Madol within a neat timeline. A city of chiefs, dated between 1200 and 1500 AD. But even this raises more questions than it answers. How could a relatively small island society have suddenly organized one of the most ambitious engineering projects in the Pacific without leaving behind records, tools, or precursors? Where are the smaller experiments, the trial and error stages of such an enormous undertaking? The history feels too abrupt, too clean, as if something crucial has been erased. And then there are the alignments. Some researchers claim that, when viewed from above, certain islets and walls seem to align with lunar and solar cycles, marking equinoxes and solstices. But if true, this transforms Nan Madol from a mere capital into something else. A cosmic map on water. Could it be that Nan Madol's builders were not simply rulers, but keepers of time, using the tides and stars as their clock? If so, then what were they timing? What event? What celestial alignment? What hidden cycle was important enough to justify the creation of a city on the sea? And did that cycle end, leaving the city to be abandoned once its purpose was fulfilled? What if Nan Madol was not abandoned at all? What if its disappearance from memory was intentional? Think about it. Unlike other wonders of the world, Nan Madol never grew into
myth on the global stage. It never became a pilgrimage site, never transformed into a legend retold across continents. Instead, it sank quietly into obscurity, known only to locals, overlooked by the world. Almost as if someone, or something, wanted it to be forgotten. And this brings us back to the curse. Local stories warn that disturbing Nan Madol brings misfortune. Chiefs died when they ruled from it. Foreigners who tried to excavate its tombs often left with strange illnesses or accidents. Could these simply be coincidences? Or is there something hidden within those basalt walls that defends itself, not with soldiers, but with silence, misfortune, and fear? The city sits there still, half submerged, half remembered. But the greatest mystery of Nan Madol may not be in its past at all. It may lie in its future. Because the question
one can yet answer is, what will happen if the full truth of this ghost city finally comes to light? Under the endless Pacific night, Nan Madol lingers in silence. A city on water that whispers more than it reveals. But if we lean closer, what is it truly trying to say? For centuries, explorers, priests, and locals have spoken of voices that echo after dusk, as though the city itself remembers and retells stories of a forgotten age. Some claim they've seen figures moving among the basalt walls, shadows without bodies, guardians that refuse to leave even as the world has long abandoned them. Is this nothing more than imagination? Or could it be fragments of truth resurfacing like tide-borne secrets? The stones of Nan Madol demand attention. Each basalt pillar is perfectly shaped, aligned, and stacked with such uncanny precision that even modern engineers pause to ask, how? How did a culture without wheels, without iron, without cranes, move and balance such impossible weights? One theory suggests hundreds of men worked with rafts and coconut fiber ropes. But the stones are so large, some weighing more than 50 tons, that the logistics crumble under scrutiny. Others whisper of levitation, forgotten technologies, or perhaps even the intervention of forces we no longer understand. Yet the stones remain, daring us to find answers. But beyond the marvel of engineering lies something deeper. Nan Madol is not just an architectural feat. It is a riddle carved into the very ocean. Why build here, upon reefs, cut off from resources, vulnerable to storms and waves? Was it exile, power, or ritual necessity that drove them? The local legends tell of twin sorcerer brothers, spirits who commanded the stones with magic, stacking them effortlessly. Were these myths born to explain the unexplainable? Or are they echoes of a forgotten science, rebranded as magic with the erosion of time? And then there's the darkness. Archaeologists who have walked the narrow canals describe an overwhelming sense of unease, a pressure that sits heavy on the chest. Local elders refuse to linger too long, warning of curses. They speak of kings who ruled with cruelty,
Priests who practiced human sacrifice, of spirits who punished those who disturbed the balance. Some even suggest that the city's collapse was not gradual, but sudden, as if divine retribution had silenced it in one swift stroke. Could Nan Madol have been abandoned because of natural disaster? Or did the people themselves vanish under circumstances more sinister, a societal collapse written out of history? The parallels with other lost civilizations deepen the mystery. Compare Nan Madol to Atlantis, a fabled city swallowed by the sea. Compare it to Tiahuanaco in Bolivia, where stones too heavy to move with ancient tools rest inexplicably. Compare it to Easter Island, where massive stone heads still defy simple explanation. Are these isolated enigmas, or scattered pieces of a puzzle humanity once knew how to
solve? Could all these cultures have shared knowledge that has been erased from our collective memory, leaving only fragments, myths, and ruins? And perhaps the most haunting question of all: what lies beneath? Some divers claim that the foundations of Nan Madol stretch far below the surface, disappearing into underwater darkness. If true, it means the visible city may only be a fraction of its true size, a gateway to something larger, hidden beneath the ocean floor. What if the city we see is just the tip of a submerged labyrinth, a drowned world that predates all written history? If so, Nan Madol may not just be a city. It could be a vault of secrets older than we dare to imagine. As the tide rises and falls around its stone walls, Nan Madol keeps its silence. It invites questions, ignites imagination, and holds fast to truths it refuses to yield. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved easily. Some are designed to linger, to haunt, to pull us back again and again, like the tide itself. Nan Madol may never surrender all its secrets, but perhaps that's what makes it eternal. Because in every unanswered question, in every shadowed canal, in every stone stacked against reason, Nan Madol whispers to us, there is more to the world than you know. And so we leave the ghost city where it stands, half legend, half reality. An unsolved mystery waiting for the next curious soul brave enough to ask, who built it? How? And most of all, why?